Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tribal Elder Speaks. If there's one thing Allah has promised us, then it's death. And my family is not unfamiliar to it either. I have lost a couple of uncles, and a couple of months back, I lost my grandmother. And her death was one that I will remember for a very long time because we were at home when we got the phone call. One of my mother's sister called my mom and told her, our mother is in the hospital, and it's good if you make sure you come here as soon as possible. We immediately booked a flight, and she got, I think a couple of hours later, she was already at the airport, and she flew first to Turkey. And that exact moment is when Iran attacked Israel. So all the flights in that region were canceled. Now, because of that, my mom could not be in Kabul and see her mother for the last time, touch her mother for the last time, hug her mother for the very last time. And by the time the flights were open again, her mother was already buried, and my mother came or arrived late to Afghanistan. The same day she landed, I called her, and of course there was crying. The second day I called her, there was a lot of crying. Third day, same. I think it was by day six, by day seven, that she could actually speak with me, and I even heard some laughter in the background. And that's the exact moment I knew that my mother is going to be fine. She's surrounded with her sisters, her brothers, her father, her uncle, aunts, uncles, cousins, her loved ones. And that's when I knew, she's going to be fine, and they're going to go through this together, and they will find support with each other, and they're going to process this grief together, and they're not going to be alone in that process. And when my mom came back after 3 weeks, I did notice that she had accepted the death of my grandmother. Now, a couple of days back, one of my mother's cousin who lives in Germany, who fled Afghanistan a couple of years back, 2 years, 3 years back, um, called my mother and told, crying on the phone, told her that his son, a 1 year old kid, swallowed a battery and ended up in the hospital. And it was so severe that that there was a hospital, a helicopter came and took his son to the hospital in Germany. And uh, thanks to God, khadar shukr, the kid is going to be fine. The kid is going to be fine. But in the that's what the doctor said, at least. And they're still at the hospital, and the doctors are going to do some checkups. This is a very hard video to talk about, guys, so please bear with me if I stutter. The kid is going to be fine. He's at the hospital for checkups and all of those things, and the doctor said in a couple of days you guys can leave and go back home. But in those couple of days, you can imagine with the family members of my cousin, so of my mother's cousin, his mom, for example, his dad, those people, what they were going through, thinking they might have lost their grandkid. Today I woke up. This morning I woke up. I went to take a shower. I come back, and let me preface that my wife is a distant relative of mine. She's not my cousin. She's a distant relative of mine, and they're very close with my immediate family members and my mom's cousin and etc. Their relationship wise, we're very close to each other. I take a shower, I come back, and I see my wife crying. I immediately, first instinct, I look at my daughter. My daughter is fine. Hey, what's going on? I ask my wife, and she tells me that the sister of this guy I was just talking about, my mom's cousin, passed away in Afghanistan. I called my mother, and I asked her, "This is what I hear. Is this true?" And my mother, crying, tells me that it indeed is true, and that the family in Afghanistan is basically in shambles. This is a 35-year-old woman with four kids who passed away last night. Uh, Now, I, of course, like a very good slave, I go to work. And later on, I call my mom, ask her how it's going. And my mom says, "Well, I called my cousin, and He's absolutely going through it right now. He's crying, and he's blaming himself for everything, and why am I not there, etc., etc. And when we hung up the phone, this thought kept me busy the whole day, and that's what I want to speak with you guys about is death is extremely difficult. Whether you're close, it does not really matter. That is very, very difficult to live with. And I immediately thought of my mother's cousin, who's now in Germany, who fled Afghanistan 2 years ago. He lost his sister. He lost his sister this morning. And because of his case, he's not able to go back to Afghanistan. He doesn't. If he goes back to Afghanistan, he's not able to return back to Germany. So he's far away from his family. And imagine how he is going to process this, if he's going to be able to process this. Imagine the grief that he's going to be going through in his own. He will not have his mother to hug. He will not have his father to hug. He will not have his sisters, his siblings, I should say, to be there with him, for him, or he for them. He basically has zero support in Germany, and he has to go through all of this on his own. I know about a guy who also fled Afghanistan about 7 years ago. He's a young guy. He's 27, 28 years old. And while he was in Germany, his dad passed away in Afghanistan. And man, it's so difficult to talk about this because it's like, what matters to you in life? Why the hell would you still stay in Germany? Because his dad passed away and he couldn't go back because he knew, if I go back, I'm gonna be stuck in Afghanistan. I fled for a better life. I fled so I could make money, so I could send it back for my sick parents, for my sick dad in this case. And now your dad passed away. What are you gonna do? And just like him, there are hundreds and thousands of others who fled Afghanistan, who came to Europe or America, who lost a family member, a close family member, and had to grieve on their own, had to go through it on their own, had no one to hug, had no support whatsoever. Because who are you gonna share your sadness with? Who are you gonna share your grief with in these countries where you're completely alone? Do you think people care? Look at me. I had to go to work. I simply had to do my stuff. That is the situation we have in these countries. It's one of the hardest things that we immigrants go through. Now, for me, for my mom, thanks to God, it's a lot easier. In an unfortunate circumstance where something like this happens, she's able to go back and come back. She's able to share her grief. She's able to share her sadness with family members. She's able to sit together with them, talk and relive stories and relive moments and laugh, or cry and go through it together. But for a lot, this is not the case. There are people who lose their mothers while they're here. And we don't think about them enough. Now, before I end this video, I want to say that this woman, this lady, passed away after waking for suhoor, after having food, after having prayed namaz, after having read the Quran, and she passed away while she was sleeping. May we do enough in this lifetime for Allah so that He takes us back in that same manner. Good night, everyone.